So one among the several questions is a practical one, so I'm going to pick up where you left off. And ask you as fellow clergy people how you navigate or wrestle with the question of Sabbath time and space, given that a good deal of your work, our work, is trying to help create contexts for others in which to celebrate sacred time. And if you can be as specific as possible, I think it would be most helpful, at least this seeker, who is far from one who holds the answers to the conundrum of Sabbath.
That was my question also, so I'm going to hope that tonight has a response.
So how as ministers, how do we carve out personal Sabbath times?
Yeah, I thought sharing some tricks and tools might be helpful.
Don't laugh too much at our speakers. You're going to have an opportunity to go with the same questions next.
Well, I'll go back to the Greek again because that's what I do. But the word liturgy comes from liturgia, which means work. It's like a public work. Like you talk about liturgias in Greece, it's like public works projects. And so there is a work aspect to the work that we do in ministry. But the old adage, if you love what you do, it's not work. I think that applies. But I think there also has to be, I tell seminarians that, theoretically, forget about Sabbath. You could work 24 hours a day. There's an infinite supply of work. It's not like we're looking for stuff to do. It comes to you, and there's an infinite amount of work to do. But, we have to be the ones that draw that line, and says, that's it for the day. And maybe that day is later than other people's days. Maybe it's 7 o'clock, but it has to be 7 and not 10. Maybe it's 5. And so that's step one. For myself personally, too, there has to be a time when we're not reading Heschel at night. We might be reading, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, something like that. I'm not saying anything, but it's a good book. But so there has to be a time when you can fill that space with something else. And in that way, you risk what the monks call akilia, which means it's literally spiritual burnout. Mm-hmm. And it's the burnout that can come in a ministerial capacity, not at the end of a long day. It can come 15, 20 years in the ministry, yep, where the batteries haven't been recharged. And there's many stories. I'll just end with this. I'll tell you this one story. There's a bunch of, there was a group of monks that were there, and the lead abbot there was joking around. He was telling jokes, and all the monks were laughing. And someone came by and was kind of scandalized that monks would be having this type of attitude. But he explained that we're humans too. And so I think it's important for us, to make sure that we draw those lines ourselves, one, and two, that we fill ourselves with other things that allow us to recharge, to do the important work, the liturgy that we're called to do.
So I'll share some things that I do, whether they're perfect or not. So I do think one of the things that I find in my own spiritual practice is the importance of silence. And so I try to take a day of silence each month. Tomorrow is my day of silence, but I'm also doing a funeral on Saturday for a 24-year-old with whom I was very close, so I will be at the funeral tomorrow. And that is a violation of my Sabbath, but one I felt necessary given what's going on. But generally I try to replace that day, which means I'm going to have to take 2 in November, which will be challenging, but I'll try to figure that out. For me, taking a day of silence has been also an important way of getting other people to respect those boundaries. So I originally did it because it was very, I'm a talker. So it was a good way to sort of really challenge myself to be a listener, to really hear from God. And it takes me hours into the day to get my internal dialogue to slow down and be open to the Spirit in like really powerful ways. And usually I don't want to come out of silence the next day. I'm like, oh, these people are making me talk. So that has been a powerful practice for me. And people basically know I'm in silence, like, I can't respond to you. So there's just no point in calling and there's just no point in texting. And it's taken a while to get people to recognize if you text, it better be because the world is falling apart. And you absolutely need to hear from me. Like, if it isn't that, then you should text. So for me, that's been a helpful practice. And I do it on Fridays because for me, Sunday just is not a realistic Sabbath day. I've tried it, it just never really worked. The second thing I would say is sleep as a very deeply connected to Sabbath. But if you're not doing that well, not really sure how you pull off Sabbath very well. And so I think that's a daily moment of rest. In my own practice, I find that God speaks in the night because I will put something out there, I will go to sleep, and I will wake up with something that I couldn't, clearly I didn't wasn't thinking about it in a cognizant way. So I feel like if I can't hold some lines around sleep, usually it's a bad sign that like the rest of my Sabbath practices are not going to go so well. And so that's one of the things that I practically tell people who are like struggling to get their practice started, like, well, at least hold that every day. If you're going to go to bed by a certain time, just give a certain amount